Okay, so Mike Philbin asks, Minion Soldier, are you in favor of, I guess, one, logging off and disappearing, both yourself and then your ship? Two, logging off means you go to sleep, i.e., you are no longer playing, but your body and your ship persist. I should pose this question to all players. Now that's actually an interesting question, and during the Kraken Q&A video, I kind of hinted that there was a little bit more to that when I noted the fact that, it's interesting when CIG says that when you log off the ship, if there's still somebody on your ship, then your ship will persist. And this raises some interesting gameplay questions. So, it's a pretty difficult question, but at the same time, it's kind of a simple one, right? Because CIG has always presented, since the beginning, CIG has always presented the idea that, that's why ships have beds. You log off, your ship disappears, you're safe. That has always been kind of the mitigating factor to a lot of people's fears about, the fact that Star Citizen is going to be open world PvP for the most part. Some areas are going to be a lot safer than others, but generally there's always that element of risk, and that's supposed to add to the experience, add to the fun, right? And it's important to acknowledge that, that was always something that was going to happen. And so I think that we could all agree that, coming in late in the game and saying, well, one of these foundational elements, we're totally going to change it, and we're going to change our original idea or our original vision, Vision 2.0. A lot of the community could raise a lot of hell over that. And certainly right now, what Star Citizen doesn't need is a major shift in how the game is going to be played, especially one that could potentially anger a lot of backers. There's a lot of people out there, I think, who are tolerant of the idea of world PvP. There's a lot of people out there who would like a much more PvE WoW server style gameplay where you can opt in and opt out, like, ooh, I'm going to turn on war mode type thing. And, I can speak from firsthand experience to say that that type of model is generally unsuccessful for a multitude of reasons. But, there's a lot of people who would really prefer it to be that way, but have kind of come in with the understanding that, yes, you can be shot at. Yes, there is a certain amount of risk. There are certain areas that are safe. There are certain areas that are unsafe or less safe. But in general, logging out your ship, if there's no one else aboard your ship disappears. It's one of the things that was confirmed in the Kraken Q&A, which also raised the question, what happens if someone sneaks on your ship? So there's still a possibility to pin somebody, to catch somebody out. These things are still possible, though to what extent, we do not know. But I think that people's tolerance of that for those players is kind of contingent on this being a thing in the game. Now, some people would argue, obviously, that it would be more realistic if your ship is there in the universe. Your ship should be there in the universe, right? It shouldn't just vanish off to safety. That's fake. That's unrealistic. True. That is true. But at the same time, if we were dealing with a quote-unquote real universe, then if someone started attacking your ship, then you would be alerted because you would be there all the time. If we're using the rules of realism, then you would be there all the time. Your character would be there all the time. Your character all of a sudden starts hearing, red alert or alarm bells, or, someone knocking on the captain's door and saying, oh, we're under attack, we're under attack. and you think, okay, let me take action, let me do this, let me do that. And whoever's serving on your ship just wakes up as well, and you all go about your tasks and dealing with the situation. If we're using the realism rule, then that would be something that's also in place. But the truth is this is not a real universe. And in the real world, you may not be available to take action when these things occur, right? So to sit there and say, well, where realism profits one player, let's say I'm hunting down a particular player, and if they're logged off and now I can attack their ship and I can steal their ship or I can destroy their ship or whatever, and they have absolutely no recourse because, we've gone with the realism argument, that really isn't fair, right? And I mean, at that point, you're just shooting down a dead ship because no one's really there to protect it. And some people might say, well, you can get the NPCs to protect it, but how good are the NPCs really going to be? I mean, not really. I mean, I in so many games, I've seen so many people boasting about how great the AI is and how smart the AI is, and I always kind of go, yeah, it's good for about a week, maybe about a month, until people start figuring out where the gaps are in their quote-unquote intelligence, and they just end up getting raffle stomped again. It's a matter of learning what their limitations are. So, I mean, that seems to me to be like, just because it is already like the idea that has been sold to us and accepted by the community for the most part. And the fact that even if you make the realism argument, it's not really realism unless the other player can respond in kind, and you can't expect a player who might be at the office or might be commuting or away on vacation to immediately log into the game and take action. You might catch them at an inopportune moment, and they may not be able to get onto the PC maybe for days. So that's kind of where the realism argument kind of falls apart. That being said, there is a certain value to a much more difficult and a much more harsh system. Recently, a bunch of the Scum members and myself had played Conan Exiles, and we had our own server and we were building our base, blah blah blah, having a lot of fun. But the thing about that game is when you log off, your character remains in that world, and so that enforced on us a few challenges. We always had to make sure that all the doors to our bases were locked. We had to make sure that we had many thralls standing guard at our fortress to protect it, or at least delay any attempt to attack it and kill us and steal all our wicked cool loots. And it was very successful for us using that format. We had a lot of fun, and I think that harsher reality, it made us better at doing what we were doing. It made us think more, it made us smarter about what we were doing. And I mean, certainly, you could say that there are going to be certain ports in the universe, whether it's Hurston, whether it's Grim Hex, whether, wherever you go, even Levski, where you can go, you can park your ship, you can get a hab, and you're going to be safe, right? But, some people might say, I don't want to always have to be tethered to a place like that. I want to be able to go out and explore and do my own thing. Though, I think that when you're restricted by such rules, when you're kind of held to such a standard, and you rise to the occasion, it makes you a smarter player. It makes you a better player. And I feel that there's a very valid argument to be made in that direction. Arguments in favor of player safety and protection and player convenience, quality of life. A lot of there are arguments out there that are quite valid, that are absolutely valid. However, as someone who doesn't really kind of jump ship and oh, I'm going to try this game, I'm going to try that game, but as someone who participates in a more limited group of games, and I think that lends me a little bit more perspective as to the long-term effects of certain decisions. I can tell you that I have certainly seen the very slow but insidious and degenerative effect that certain player conveniences and quality of life changes can have on the player community, and how it can affect them in a very negative way, and it can create a reality that ultimately I think eats away at the very foundation of the game. To give you an example, in this portion of the video, I'm now on my third attempt to re-record this because I'm trying to keep it concise but give a very clear example. A friend recently asked me, are you going to play WoW Classic? And I said, yeah, probably. And he said, oh, what are you going to play? And I said, oh, I'm going to play a rogue. He said, oh yeah, me too, man. I'm going to get Thunder Fury and I'm going to friggin', do engineering, and I'm just going to wreck people in battlegrounds. I'm going to be high warlord. I'm going to be the king. Blah, blah, blah. And, all this, real enthusiasm. And I have to admit, there was an evil grin that spread across my face when I heard all this. And I just went, oh my God. And I said, well, your engineering's going to be difficult because, you're going to be an herbalist and an alchemist, right? You can't have more than two professions. And you're going to want that herbalism and you're going to want that alchemy pretty badly. What do you mean? I said, well, blinding powder requires fade leaf. You got to go farm that. Otherwise, you're always going to be buying that shit off the auction house. And you're going to have to, and remember that you're going to have to level up your poison making. You're going to have to level up your lock picking, because otherwise no one's going to want a rogue that can't pick locks. You're fucking useless then. No one's going to run a dungeon with you. You got to have that. So you got to be spamming local, saying opening all lock boxes, no tip required, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have to be doing that like crazy to level up your lock picking. And, as for the, getting Thunder Fury thing, it's like, after the Prot Warrior has his Thunder Fury, if there are no other Prot Warriors lined up, then the rogues get it. And after that, then it's open season to anybody else, but it always goes Prot Warriors, then rogues. That's the order of priority, so you may not see Thunder Fury for a long time. Now, it may sound harsh, what I said, and what I did, especially the part about lockpicking, but it's true. Run any dungeon with a rogue that doesn't have lockpicking leveled up, and you see chests there that might have profession materials, all kinds of cool shit in them, and you have a stupid, useless rogue who can't unlock it because they never bothered to go through the grind of, leveling lockpicking. No one wants that rogue. That's a trash rogue, and that rogue is not going to get invited, and they're going to get ridiculed on their server, and everyone's going to know, boom, you're a trash rogue, and no one's going to want to bring you. Even when you do the grind, they're going to be like, oh, here's the trash rogue. So it sounds harsh. It sounds brutal, but to a certain degree, it creates a better class of player. It creates dedication. It gives you goals, because that fear of that ridicule, that fear of all of a sudden standing there in a group and being useless and looking like an idiot is so great that, there are going to be the people who are just going to be moronical no matter what you try to do, but the people who are on the fence, the people who are close enough to get it, to understand it, and to not just say, oh, well, I pay a subscription fee, so I feel that I should be included in everything. Don't exclude me with your elitist tactics, blah, blah, blah. The people who understand that, there's a cost and a value to these things, they're going to go out and get them. And and for the people who are on the fence, it makes them get it, and it makes them a better player. It gives them goals, and it makes them, you know, kind of discipline themselves into achieving those goals. And having too many ease of use and quality of life changes in a game over its lifetime can have a very, very degenerative effect on players, to the point that, you know, when you talk to someone who plays retail WoW nowadays versus somebody who played over a decade or more, it's a completely different class of player. And sometimes when you're playing with people in the game now, I mean, even I notice it when I run dungeons, I can sometimes pick out almost the expansion a tank started playing the game just by watching them play and just watching how they handle things. Like if I see an LOS pull, I'm like, okay, this guy started at least in Kata or further back. Whereas if I just see a tank just charging in and whatever, I just AoE everything, I got all the threat, doesn't matter, blah, 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 I know, yeah, okay, that's Pandaria and beyond. You know, it's things like that that make the difference. And I think that having a harsh rule set is beneficial in the long term to a game. I think that honestly Star Citizen sets a pretty good balance right now, and I think arguing to alter it would not be beneficial to the community at this time, though if we were going to change it, I'd probably argue a little bit tougher.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.